of a longtime PSTA bus operator, Mr. Ira Roberts, who passed earlier this week. And then please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Madam Chair, I'd be honored. Thank you.
Okay.
We mourn the loss of our PSTA work brother, Ira Ronnie Roberts. He passed away on Monday. He's a 14-plus year veteran of the PSTA. He's also a veteran of the U.S. Army. Ira had $1 million smile, always good-natured and kind. He touched the lives of both PSTA employees and PSTA customers alike. Loved the Dallas Cowboys, the LA Lakers, enjoyed playing cards in his downtime, and he loved the color blue. Let's have a moment of silence for Ira Ronnie Roberts. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dan. Tonight, unfortunately, since Rachel Coppola is joining us virtually by Zoom, we won't be using the voting system, so we'll have to get old-fashioned and say yay or nay. Hope we remember how. Okay. Let's see. And I wanted everybody to notice that every single one of us is here tonight.
That's great.
This is record-breaking. Yay, good for us. Okay, we are here to do our public hearing for the final millage budget public hearing. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive public input and allow the public to ask questions concerning the authority's proposed millage rate and proposed operating and capital budget for fiscal year 22. Tonight, we will consider the final millage rate and final 2022 budget. Copies of our proposed budget are available if you have not already obtained one. The proposed fiscal year 2022 budget is included herewith, totaling, I'm going to take this slow, Commissioner Long, $182,044,098 with an operating budget of $97,534,036 and the capital budget of $84,510,062. The fiscal year 2022 proposed millage rate remains unchanged at 0.7500. The fiscal year 2022 rolled back rate is 0.7045. The fiscal year 2022 proposed millage rate is 0.7500, is 6.46% greater than the rolled back rate. PSTA's millage rate limit is 0.750. The proposed property tax rate is used to fund the fiscal year 2022 budget.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'll read the statement for the record. This public hearing has been scheduled so that the general public may be given the opportunity to comment on the proposed millage rate and budget for fiscal year 2022. A paid advertisement concerning this public hearing appeared in the Tampa Bay Times on August 29th and September 26th. Notices were posted at Park Street Terminal, Grand Central Station, Williams Park, Pinellas Park Transit Center, and PSTA's administrative headquarters, on all PSTA buses, and on PSTA's website on August 27th. An announcement was posted on social media on August 27th. We did receive one public comment on the millage that we discussed at our last hearing. On September 1st, Mr. Howard Godfrey had a conversation with CFO Debbie Leas. He had general concerns about the increase in his property taxes. Debbie explained that the millage did not change, but his property values had increased.
Okay. And now Debbie Leos, who's the Chief Financial Officer, will give us a brief budget and millage presentation. Debbie?
Thank you so much, Chair Gerard, and good evening. I'm Deborah Elias. I'm Chief Financial Officer here at PSTA. And this is the second public hearing we're holding on our fiscal '22 budget, and will also be the final one. Am I good on? Okay, perfect. Throughout the course of this year, we have been working towards bringing the full budget to you. And I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to all of our chiefs and directors who've put a lot of time and effort into the budget, as well as my very great budget team headed up by Michael Hansen in the back, Nelson Dort, and we have a new person here at PSTA. We've named him the Wizard, and his name is Nick Sagan. So I appreciate all the work that went into this thus far. And if we could go to the next slide. One thing that we have talked about all year is sustainability, and PSTA has a very good strategic sustainability plan. And with that, when you know what the outcomes are that you want to have, you can work towards the action plans. And the fiscal '22 budget is filled with a lot of actions, especially when you're beginning with the end in mind. And sustainability has really become part of the culture here at PSTA. And it is not an event. We just had the most tremendous event with our leadership group preceding this meeting, but it really is not just that, it's a process that is woven into our culture. Next slide. As Chair Gerard said and Commissioner Long said last time, we have a robust budget. $97.5 million for operating, $84.5 million for capital. And we are balanced, looking to the future. Next slide. One of the things we talk a lot about is environmental sustainability. We have the Sunrunner that'll be opening up this summer. We are working on a solar design, and this is very important because we are looking for zero-emission buses. That is what our goal is, 100% zero-emission buses. Henry Lukasik and Al Burns have been working on a statewide procurement for electric buses, and I hope to be the first one in the state to order off of that when we bring that to you, and also have it be the largest order of electric buses in PSTA's history. Next slide. Social sustainability covers a lot of the other areas. And one of the things that our Secretary of Transportation has really been bringing home is the thought that it is the right moment to be looking at equity implications in everything we do. And this is where the social sustainability piece comes in. We are making sure that everyone can participate fully and equitably in our economy. As you can see from the list, we've done quite a bit over the months to bring this forth. With diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'm very proud to say tonight, right at the board meeting, you will be hearing from one of our employee resource groups on something very near and dear to my heart. As you can see, we have a missing man table in front of you, and the reason it's very important to me is my father was MIA, and then he was a POW. So let us not forget, and that's what it's all about, remembrance. But PSTA is all for looking forward, so next slide. And moving forward on new initiatives, we've got the Clearwater Intermodal Center. You may have seen in the lobby, we've gotten a lot of signatures in support of this, and recently had an event relating to it. The autonomous vehicle AVA will be coming to Clearwater, and as we look at ferry service for expanding our first mile, last mile, for a very comprehensive transportation system, and of course, we hope that would be with some sort of hybrid technology with the ferry. Next slide. So we are all highly motivated, not just Al Burns, but all of us are highly motivated to move forward with this, with exciting projects and programs. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Do we have any questions for Debbie? Turn your mic on. Turn your mic on.
Turn my mic up.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. So my question revolves around the autonomous vehicle pilots. I know they were incredibly well-received in South St. Pete. I haven't heard much lately about the progress in Dunedin, and I think it's soon to be, or has already moved to Clearwater Beach. Can you give us some,
From my understanding.
where are we?
We are moving to Clearwater Beach, and I believe it may go back to Dunedin, and we're looking at other opportunities within the St. Petersburg area as well.
That'd be great if we could have year-round service.
Yeah.
People really love it, right?
Oh, it's adorable. How can you not love it?
Okay.
That's it, Madam Chair, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, now it's time for public comment on the proposed millage rate. You can call into the meeting and provide comment at the number shown on the screen. Thank you. Individuals will be able to speak for 3 minutes during the public comment period. You can also submit comments by email at publiccomments@psta.net. Is there any public in the lobby or online that would like to make comments? Or did you receive any written comments other than the one that you've already mentioned?
No other comments.
in the lobby for public comments.
And no
And,
other,
Online.
yep, no other written comments or verbal comments were received.
Okay, thank you.
And I confirm, Chair Gerard, that there was nobody else on the phone line.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now for the record, I must make this announcement again. For the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority, the fiscal year 2022 final millage rate is .7500. The fiscal year 2022 rolled back rate is .7045. Yeah. The fiscal year 2022 proposed millage rate of .7500 is 6.46% greater than the rolled back rate. PSTA's millage rate limit is .750. Before we vote, Nikki, can you read Resolution 21-08?
Absolutely. Resolution number 21-08, a resolution of the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority fixing the final millage rate to be levied for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, and ending September 30th, 2022, and providing for an effective date. And this has been reading of Resolution 21-08 by title only.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the final rate?
Move
Final.
approval, Madam Chair, to approve the final rate.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Long, second from Commissioner Flowers. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, now's the time for public comment on the proposed final fiscal year 2022 budget. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, again, the telephone number is on the screen. Is there any public in the lobby or on the line that would like to comment, or did you receive any other written comments?
There's no one in the lobby for public comment.
Okay, and there's nobody online?
There's nobody online for public comment, thank you.
Okay, thank
And no
you.
other written comments were received.
Okay. Before we vote, Nikki, can you read Resolution 21-09?
Resolution number 21-09, a resolution of the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority adopting the final budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, and ending September 30th, 2022, for carrying on the duties and obligations of the authority and providing for an effective date. And this has been reading of Resolution 21-09 by title only.
Thank you.
Move approval of the final millage rate, Madam Chair.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Long, second by Commissioner Albritton. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. This concludes the public hearing. Okay, next we have presentations. And this begins the regular PST board meeting. We have a presentation tonight on the missing man table by PSTA's Veteran Employee Resource Group in honor of this month's National POW MIA Recognition Day. PSTA's Superintendent of Transportation and former U.S. Army service member Craig Daniels, representing the Veterans Employee Group, will please present the table. Craig?
Good evening, board members. My name is Craig Daniels, Superintendent of Transportation, and I'm also the founder of the Veterans Resource Group. The Veterans Resource Group was established in 2018 as a result of the Leadership PSTA class project. The group was conceptualized with one goal in mind: and that is to provide veterans that are employed here at PSTA and their families access to resources, services, community engagements, and efforts. We will also serve as a resource for those in need, creating jobs, opportunities, and recruiting veterans and assisting other veterans at PSTA. To date, the Veterans Resource Group serves about 50 veterans, all branches of the military, Army, Navy, Air Force, and the Marine Corps. In front of you, you may have noticed a special table. It serves to honor our missing men and women, those who serve and currently serving in the uniformed services of the military are ever mindful of the sweetness of enduring peace has always been tainted with the bitterness of personal sacrifice. We are compelled to never forget that while we are enjoying our daily pleasures, there are others that are endured and may still be enduring the agonies of pain, deprivation, and imprisonment. Before we begin our activities, we pause to recognize our POWs and MIAs. We would like to, I would like to call to your attention this small table, which occupies a place of dignity and honor. It is set for one, symbolizing the fact that members of our armed forces are missing from our ranks. They are referred to as POWs, prisoners of wars, and MIAs, missing in action. We call them brothers. They are unable to be with their loved ones and family, so we join together to pay humble tribute to them and bear witness to their continued absence. This small table shows our everlasting concern. The cloth is white, symbolizing the motives when they are answering the call to service. A single rose signifies the blood they may have shed and sacrificed to ensure our freedom, and reminds us that their loved ones and friends who keep the faith while seeking answers. The red ribbon on the vase represents an unyielding determination for a proper accounting of our comrades who are not among us. The slice of lemon reminds us of their bitter fate, captured or missing in a foreign land. A pinch of salt reminds us of the tears of our missing and their family. The lighted candle reflects our hope for their return. The Bible represents strength gained through their faith to sustain us and loss from our country, and founded as one nation under God. The glass inverted to symbolize their inability to toast. The chair is empty. They're missing. They're not here. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor America's POWs and MIAs, to the success of our efforts to account for them, and to the safety of all that are now serving our nation. Please join me in a moment of silence as we remember those POWs and MIAs. On behalf of those who currently serve and have served, I thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for your support.
All right. For our regular meeting, public comment will now be received on items on the consent agenda or items not on the agenda. Once again, you can make a public comment on the telephone by calling the number on the screen. Is there any public in the lobby or on the line that would like to comment? There's no one in the lobby. Thank you. Okay. Now's the time for the consent agenda. Are there any items you wish to be pulled?
Move consent, Madam Chair.
Okay. Before we vote, Nikki, can you read Resolution 21-05?
Resolution 21-05, a resolution of the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority adopting Pinellas County's local mitigation strategy, authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to provide a copy of this resolution to FEMA and any other agencies, authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to apply for and accept FEMA grants, and providing for an effective date. And this has been reading of Resolution 21-05 by title only.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Long, second by Commissioner Driscoll. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now it's time for committee updates. First up is Track, Duncan Kovar.
Once again, thanks for the opportunity to address you guys. And it's always been my honor to both serve as the chair and as a member of the Transit Riders Committee. I'm once again representing the Tampa Bay Post-Carbon Council. We met September 14th, and it has been the sadness of my term as I come to close in December that we met by Zoom, and I'm afraid we're never going to again get, my term ends in December, that we continue to meet in Zoom. We don't get to have quorums. We don't get to vote. We have consensus that we support all that is being done by the board, but we primarily just get presentations. We had a great meeting this month. We had 4 items that we saw. Outreach planner Juan Luvian came and told us again about Flamingo Fairs. Very productive. We had a lot of good questions about it. Very concerned what a great tool Flamingo Fairs is going to be for us. Jacob Labuda came and told us about AVA, the presentation about what's going down in Clearwater. Again, the transit riders very excited for what we're seeing happening with autonomous vehicles. Again, great support for that. Chief Development Officer Cassandra came and told us about the business with St. Petersburg and the Looper and how that is being extended. Once again, the transit riders, great support for all of that that's going on down in St. Petersburg. And then finally, we'd been asking for and got a wonderful presentation from Forward Pinellas. As you know, transit riders, sometimes we get lost in the buses and the bus stops and all of that. And I sit as the liaison. A couple of us sit on the Forward Pinellas Citizen Board. But for the rest of the group to see that what's happening with PSTA is part of an overall presentation, it was great. We got, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 minutes of the big picture. It was great. It was a great meeting, although sadly by Zoom. I'll tell you that our next meeting is October 19th, and you guys are always invited to attend. Join in with Zoom. Thank you for your attention. See you in a month.
Thank you, Duncan.
Thank you.
They'll just have to elect you to chair again on some year when you can actually meet in person.
Once I turn back in, right?
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Okay, local coordinating board, Ross Silver. Is he online?
There he is.
There he is. Okay.
Good evening. This is Ross Silvers with the Local Coordinating Board report. Making sure you all can hear me okay?
Yep.
Excellent, thank you. So the Local Coordinating Board met at the offices of Forward Pinellas down in downtown Clearwater, September 21st. And part of that meeting was Michael Smith, who was our chair, unfortunately had to submit a written notice that he had to resign due to too many schedule conflicts. So in the meantime, we have vice chair acting in that capacity, hoping for an elected official to fill in the meantime. The LCB reviewed the annual operating report after I had responded to some questions about increasing agency trips and also returning to bus fares and to Flamingo. And then we had Robert Feigl with Forward Pinellas going over what is required in order for PSTA to be redesignated as a community transportation coordinator for Pinellas County. That designation is what allows PSTA to operate the Transportation Disadvantaged Program. Essentially, we're first going to put something forth to the LCB. They'll review it and approve it. It'll go on to the Forward Pinellas Board and then on to the Commission for the Transportation Disadvantaged to officially designate us before June of 2022. The LCB also received a presentation from Forward Pinellas on the newly named Suncoast Transportation Alliance that I know PSTA has received as well. And then I gave an update on some changes at PSTA, including to our bus service and Flamingo and all the updates with access and how all these different services impact our transportation disadvantaged customers. The next LCB meeting is going to take place on November 16th at 9:15 a.m. in the same location. Anyone is welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Ross.
No, thank you, Ross. Forward Pinellas, Commissioner Long.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Forward Pinellas Board met in person on September 8th. The Forward Pinellas Board approved amendments to the Transportation Improvement Program, including the addition of a southbound left turn lane at the intersection of Gandy Boulevard and US 19, and the acceptance of a $4.6 million federal grant awarded to Pinellas County from the United States Department of Transportation for a connected community project to expand new innovative technologies along US 19 and State Road 60 that will measure and manage congestion, creating a safer roadway. As a result of the Legislative Committee workshop on August 11th, 2021, entitled Finding Common Ground, a conversation with state legislators, a number of legislators in attendance have pledged to work more closely with Pinellas local governments on safety and flexible transportation funding during the 22 legislative session. In response to the many benefits of micromobility devices and share programs such as electric scooters and e-bikes, vastly growing popularity and regulatory challenges, Forward Pinellas has developed a new micromobility knowledge exchange series to provide a guidance and information to local governments for expanded use of micromobility strategies in Pinellas County. The Forward Pinellas Waterborne Transportation Committee met in late August, and we will be developing a county-wide approach to sustaining and expanding waterborne transportation in coordination with PSTA and local government partners for funding decisions in the common months. The committee is next scheduled to meet in November, with Forward Pinellas taking board action in early 2022. Early bird registration for the 2021 Gulf Coast Safe Streets Hybrid Summit is now open. Forward Pinellas is the host agency. You can register now at www.gulfcoastsafestreetsummit.org/register. Any questions? I'm happy to try and answer them.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, a T-Barter report from Commissioner Flowers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had an opportunity to meet on the other side of the bridge at the request of our, colleagues from Hillsborough County. And so we had a chance to welcome a new board member, Mr. Holcomb from Hernando County to serve, and I think he'll bring some great depth to that committee. As the Secretary Treasurer for T-BARTA, I had a chance to present, along with Melanie Williams from T-BARTA, the financial forecast for T-BARTA. And I am pleased to announce that we have more than, 17 cents in the bank?
Yes, ma'am.
We have $3.8 million, which is considered to be our draft budget for fiscal year 2022. We have about $8.4 million, but those dollars have been targeted for specific programs, such as our continued commuter assistance program, the completion of the project development, and for our environmental PD&E work for the 41-mile BRT, certainly completion of our aerial gondola feasibility study, and our partner contributions remain the same to continue establishing and operating services. We did have I think, a rather robust conversation about the funding amount that partners pay into T-BARTA in order to try to help keep the organization solvent and moving forward. We also had a presentation from Melanie looking at the forecasting of the existence of T-BARTA, barring no additional support from the state legislature. And so as it stands, we will be fine out through 2023. And so I am hopeful that we will have our strategic planning session very soon so that we can really talk about how to increase that and expand the operations. I think we'll be successful. I am pleased to announce, and everyone was excited to know, that PSTA once again has selected to be a wonderful partner T-BARTA will piggyback off of PSTA for its lobbying resources through RSA, please forgive me. RSA Consulting Group. And so that also allowed T-BARTA to save some additional dollars. So thank you so much to Brad and PSTA for allowing us to do that. The governing body unanimously approved requesting a fiscal year 2022 appropriation for operating funds. So we're going to try it again, and hopefully we'll be successful this time. A recommendation was also made to leverage local dollars by developing language that DOT would match contributions made by local governments. Ideally, this would come from the state general revenue sources. The board also received an update on our SIS plan, which is the Strategic Intermodal System, which is Florida's high-priority network of transportation facilities important to moving people and freight, linking Florida's regions and investing in strategic transportation facilities. Along with that conversation certainly came the conversation about utilizing the CSX railroad systems. One of the recommendations from the Innovative Transit Technology Study was to collaborate with NASA on work they are doing with their air taxi veriports. And we had a nice presentation on that. So it's like the Jetson, you guys. We're going to be flying through the air. NASA has developed a GIS model that helps state and local government agencies identify the best locations for the air taxi vertiports through heat mapping. And we were shown a sample of how that works. T-BARTA and the Hillsborough TPO worked with Dr. Kapil Sheth from NASA on customizing this GIS model for Hillsborough County. Through data provided, 11 locations have been chosen just for the analysis. Some examples noted were near the airport, Amalia Arena, and the Convention Center. NASA currently has a patent pending for this work. Our next scheduled board meeting is October 22nd, and that meeting will be right back here in these quarters. If there are any questions, I'm more than happy to try to answer them at this point in time.
No questions?
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, our only action item tonight is to approve the recommended 2022 state legislative priorities. And Brad is going to take us through this item, but first I'd like to recognize Mr. Ron Pierce of RSA Consulting, who is with us tonight and is our PSTA legislative advocate in Tallahassee. Welcome, Ron.
That's fine. No problem. Good. Good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, board members. You're making like record time. I feel like I'm standing between you and dinner at this point, so I'll try to be brief. So, on the screen, you'll see our legislative agenda for this year. I'll let Brad kind of at the end kind of bring something in for a landing. Some of these items that you've seen before. And ladies and gentlemen, session's already started because our first committee week was last week in Tallahassee. We have 2 committee weeks scheduled for October, 2 November, 1 December, and session starts on January the 11th. So session is literally right around the corner. So I think we have 7 items on the agenda here. On item number 1, Restore Transportation Disadvantage, the Innovative Service Development Fund. That was actually removed. It's actually in the budget, if I'm going to make a long story very, very short. The corridors bill from a couple years ago that was a priority of Senate President Bill Galvano. What the House and Senate did at that point in time, they took some transportation disadvantage dollars, they put it into the corridor bill. It was about $10 million that was being specifically spent through a transportation disadvantage program. When the legislature repealed the corridors bill this year, that funding went away, which impacted our ability to be able to fund our innovative service development funds. The good news is we've already talked to the governor's office. Governor's office knows this is an issue. They're already working on a solution for this year, which I'll talk about in a minute, but more importantly for next year to ensure that those dollars are once again available to not only PSTA, but there was a number of transit agencies that were impacted by those funds going away. Second one actually kind of ties into it a little bit, which is we're trying to work on a solution for this year for some of these solutions. FDOT's got a transit rule today called 1490. Basically what that means is today for transportation disadvantaged dollars, we're spending those on T&C programs like our late shift program. We're able to spend those dollars through transportation disadvantage. We can't spend normal DOT dollars on T&C related programs. One of the main reasons being is because the rules for DOT are outdated to be able to catch up to the technology. And so we've been working with the governor's office, we've been working with DOT directly to ensure that that rule kind of catches up where DOT can actually spend trust fund dollars on these type of programs moving forward. For those of you, I know we've got a number of former legislators sitting around the table here. It takes forever to change rules in Tallahassee. I've been working on this rule with DOT for a long time, so we're trying to bring that in for a landing. We had a call with the governor's office. We've also had Brad have a conversation with Uber as well. I know they're engaged trying to get this fixed because it's not just us being impacted. There are a number of other agencies out there that are being impacted as well. So that's something, we have it on the agenda for really two reasons. Number one, if we can't get it fixed through the rulemaking process, we're just going to fix it through changing state law. And so that's something that we may try to have to do. VW settlement dollars, we have it on there because the legislature now has the authority to move forward with spending the remaining dollars as a part of the VW settlement program. We'd love to have some of those dollars spent on transit buses. The first half of those funds went all on school buses. We've been working with DEP and the governor's office on trying to come up with a plan where 50% can also go to transit buses, but not only for the buses, but all for infrastructure as well, such as charging stations. Electric infrastructure fund, that kind of ties back to number 3. One of the ideas we have there is trying to use some of the VW settlement dollars to see if there's a way to come up with a specific fund that we could use for infrastructure. Last year, Senator Brandes actually had a bill for infrastructure, but it was more for dealing with cars and automobiles. It wasn't dealing with buses or transit. So that's something we're going to have a conversation with him about, but also have a conversation with DOT. On the next slide, I'm not sure if I'm controlling or somebody else can. Thank you. Number 5, I'm going to be very brief on this. Basically, DOT right now, last year, one of the things I think most of the state agencies learned from COVID was we need to give, I think, local governments more flexibility or give the state departments more flexibility on how these dollars can be spent. And so DOT has been working over the last year on trying to come up with ways to be able to work on using specific state dollars for transportation and using those not on just roads but on other projects. And so the CISP funding, for example, there's a proposal out there from DOT today. 75% of those funds today have to be spent on road projects, lowering that to 50%, which would really allow us to spend more dollars on transit-related projects, which is important to PSTA. The other two issues there, the DDR and the arterials funding flexibility, what's important about that is if we can actually get some additional flexibility from DOT, that would give us the ability potentially to spend some of these dollars on transit operations such as Sunrunner, which would be very important because, as we all know, in many cases, when transit projects come out of the ground, we can do the infrastructure. They're not so self-sustaining at first. And so any additional dollars, state dollars we can get to help will help them be self-sustaining for the long term. Pre-award authority from DOT grants, what we're trying to do there is really kind of mirror what the federal government does today. The state has a very clear line in the sand that you cannot start spending state dollars until you have the authority from DOT to be able to do that. The challenge is that in many cases, we may be working on PD&E and other projects or even actually turning on a project. We don't have the ability to go back in time to collect those dollars. And so we basically want to work with some type of a pre-award program where it could still be within the actual fiscal year, July 1, for example. But in some cases, when the fiscal year starts in July 1, we may not have access to this funds until 3 or 4 or 5 months later. So if we start a project after July 1, even if we don't get the dollars, be able to go back in time and be reimbursed as long as it's a project that has been approved by DOT. Number 6 is Medicaid. Today, and this is something that's been on our agenda the last couple of years, is there are a number of trips today that we know are eligible to be reimbursed by Medicaid, but they're coming to PST for a variety of reasons, and we're not getting reimbursed for that. So there's a new Secretary of ACA that we're going to sit down with and have a conversation about. We know they're not going to be able to actually give us access potentially to the database, but is there a way for us to work with ACA that if we know that person should be eligible for some type of a Medicaid reimbursement for that trip, that we should have the ability to work with ACA and get reimbursed for the funds that we're paying now for that. Last thing I have on the agenda here for your support this evening is ferry service. Today, we want to make sure that it's clear from DOT's perspective that ferry service would be considered transit service, and that transit service would then qualify for additional dollars. That should be an easy fix, but we're going to make sure that it's very clear from a DOT perspective that ferry service does qualify as some version of transit service. We do have a couple of trips planned for Brad and some board members to come to Tallahassee. We have already October the 12th and 13th on the calendar, which is perfect because hopefully all, as you approve this evening, we can then go to Tallahassee and start, working with not only our delegation, but some of the key House and state leaders that deal with transportation and appropriation related issues. And then we also have February the 15th and 16th on the calendar as well, which is a little bit later in session, but I think it's a good opportunity at that point in time where hopefully some of these issues are coming in for a landing. I'll stop there and see if any board members have any questions or comments.
Questions? Oh, Brad?
Yeah, thank you, Ron. Ron went through it perfectly. You will have this right in front of you. This is the document that is before you tonight, recommended unanimously by the PSTA Legislative Committee for your approval to be our sort of priorities that we'll take to Tallahassee on those 2 trips. And then Ron, in the many other weeks of the legislative session, his meeting, will advocate, maybe even like we have done this past year, have Zoom meetings with various DOT officials, et cetera. A whole strategy that we put out to try to make progress on all of these priorities. Priority number 1, about restoring funds that were taken away from us, that is clearly our number 1 priority. I think we have, Ron and his RSA team have done a great job of connecting us with a whole coalition of, there's lots of people that want those funds restored all across the state, so I'm hopeful that we can get that done. The only other thing I just wanted to thank is the PSTA Legislative Committee Chair, Commissioner Long, and the members that are on that committee, because we've been talking about these issues every meeting for a long time. And then I want to thank you all for volunteering to come with me to meet Ron up in Tallahassee, because I think it's a huge benefit when PSTA board members come with me. I mean, they all kind of roll their eyes when they see me. They know what I'm advocating for, some kind of bus thing. But then when they see you all, I think that brings a plus. So I want to thank Commissioners Saraki and Robinson for coming up later this month with me, hopefully. And then, as Ron said, we'll go back in February again. I don't know if the chair of the committee or anybody else wants to say anything or make a motion to recommend these priorities.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve.
Okay. Who is this? Flowers. We need to take public comment. Do we have anyone in the lobby or on the phone who would like to comment?
There's no one in the lobby for comment.
Thank you. Nobody on the
And
phone? Okay.
There's nobody on the phone for public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We have a motion from Commissioner Saraki, second from Commissioner Flowers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Madam Chair, members, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good job.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay. Next issue is a 5-year bus replacement plan, and Henry Lukasik is going to tell us about that.
Good evening. Henry Lukasik, Director of Maintenance. So at the last joint Finance and Planning Committee meeting, we talked about a 5-year bus replacement plan strategy. So very quickly, a couple high points. PSTA has 210 heavy transit buses. These are the buses you see out in service all the time. We break these buses into sub-fleets based off model year. So right now, we have buses that are from 2005 all the way up to brand-new buses, which are 2021. Next slide, please. So fortunately for PSTA, back in the 2005-2006 era, it received quite a bit of funding to go ahead and purchase a lot of buses. In fact, courtesy of Representative Bill Young at the time, who also served as the House Appropriations Chair. Next slide, please. PSTA was able to purchase in 2 years 60 buses, 21 year in 2005, and 45 buses in 2006. And after a little bit of research, I cannot find in the historical record of PSTA where a single year order was ever as large as 45 buses. That is a large number of buses at one time. As you can see on the screen, these buses are now approaching 15 and a half years old and close to 852,000 miles. I can tell you that the Federal Transit Administration defines the useful life of a transit bus as 12 years and 500,000 miles. So it's safe to say that we have maximized each dollar invested. We've gotten way more out of these buses. And that I compliment the Fleet Maintenance Division for doing that. Next slide, please. So part of this strategy is to replace our 60 oldest buses over the next 5 years. It is time for them to go. And part of our replacement strategy, before I turn it over to our CFO, is going to, of course, focus on zero-emission buses to replace these older diesel buses, subject to available funds. And of course, if those funds aren't available, we will most certainly look at low-emission hybrid electric. As most of you know, PSTA, with its 6, soon-to-be 8 all-electric buses, 2 are still on order. We are installing and constructing electrical infrastructure for charging operations. Solar projects, these are all being designed, developed, and deployed. And of course, as Debbie will tell you, we will continue to apply for those discretionary grants wherever, whenever, and however they become available. But most importantly, before I turn it over to Debbie, just remind that PSTA remains focused on 100% zero emission as we move forward with our replacement of our existing bus fleet. And with that, I will turn it over to Debbie.
Madam Chair, before Debbie comes up, can I just make a point?
Yes, please.
Earlier today, I had a conversation with our federal advocate, Harry Glenn. And seeing this replacement strategy here brings to my mind part of the conversation that we were having at the time we were talking about the ferries. But that same strategy, I think, clearly applies here in terms of the new buses that we're trying to replace, and considering how long that initial tranche of buses held us together. It seems to me that it says with 60 new buses over next 5 years.
Yeah.
I think we should lower that 5 years and get our ask in now, because in the new infrastructure package that they're having meltdowns over on an hourly basis in DC, as the eternal optimist, kind of, sort of, I do think at the end of the day, they'll get something done for the good of all. And having our ask in now kind of gets us into the pipeline. Brad, you know better than, as well as I, how long it took us to get that money for the Sunrunner. I think we should put it in right now and not think 5 years, but maybe 2 or 2.5.
I think what your strategy that you're laying out makes perfect sense, and that's exactly why we're here tonight, kind of giving you an informational presentation about this goal of replacing the 60 buses over as soon as we possibly can. The infrastructure bills that they're talking about in Washington, D.C., those are 5- and 6-year bills that will continue to provide funding. But by having a plan in place of where we're going, and we can communicate that to our legislative advocates, that gives us the best chance possible at getting some of those discretionary grants. As Debbie's going to show you, we have a little bit of a shortfall we have to work on, so we're also watching what's going on every hour in Washington, D.C. with bated breath for this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Brad. Next slide, please.
Yes. Turn your mic on, please.
Have we ever, prior to COVID, did we ever have ridership that was standing room only on a bus?
Oh, yeah.
That was what?
We even had that during COVID.
Oh.
Pardon me?
Yeah, we even had that during COVID. Some of our routes, like the 52, the 59, the 60, the 4, are all very well-crowded routes, very well utilized.
So they were, it was standing room only type situation, totally full time. Thank you.
So right now, we have the potential that we know of about $46 million out of our federal formula funds to purchase buses. To be able to get to 100% zero emission, we would need about $75.5 million. So we have roughly about a $30 million delta that we need to work through. Next slide. So we have a robust goal here of $30 million, and to your point, Commissioner, what we want to do is lay the groundwork today. It does take time at the federal government to get your asks in. If we were to get the $30 million today, we would then spread our receipt of the buses over a number of years so that we don't, for our future generations here, end up with a similar situation of trying to replace 45 or 60 buses in 1 or 2 years. And by doing so, we've done this in the past where we've ordered buses and we spaced out the delivery so that we got the lower price because, as you know, it escalates every year. So we put the order in once. The manufacturer was very happy. We got delivery when we knew we could replace it down the road in a reasonable fashion. So we do have a big delta here. We've got some work cut out for us. We're going to be looking at discretionary grants, public-private partnerships with Duke Energy. We, of course, have that infrastructure bill, which I don't think is going to go anywhere tomorrow, but hopefully it'll move soon. You think it will?
I'm hopeful that it'll go somewhere instead of down the tubes.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope. Because it's going to take the legislative committee, all the board members, staff, all working together as a team to make this happen. And I think there's a very strong potential that we are going to get the funding, but it is going to take a little bit to get to the finish line.
Yeah.
So next slide, please. Today, what Henry and I brought to you was an information item, but we've got action items that are going to follow this. So we know that we need 60 buses. We know we would like it to be 100% zero emission. We know that may not be reality depending on how successful we are in getting the money, which I know you don't take no for an answer.
We'll get the money.
All right, see, I knew you would get charged up about this.
We'll get to the money because there's too much incentive not to.
Exactly. We don't think negative, we think positive. We think so positive that we have the electric bus procurement, as I mentioned during the public hearing. We want to be able to be the first in the state to use that once, after we bring it to the board. We want it to be the largest order of electric buses in PSDA's history, and we are going to do what needs to get done in order to replace those buses over the next 5 years. So we've got some action items coming up in October. We even are going to have an information item we've added to the list for next month to talk about the solar system, as we call it, so that you'll get a preview of what that will look like and how that will help us achieve our goals. So with that, Henry and I will take any questions.
All right, I think this is very exciting. Yes, Commissioner Flowers.
I don't have a question, but just a compliment, because the presentation was made before our planning committee, and to hear just what all goes into trying to extend the life of the buses that we currently have. I think that your staff should be commended for that. Certainly, all of the individuals working in our automotive section, you know, putting things back together and replacing parts to keep them moving and to make sure that those persons that utilize our services are still traveling in safe modes of transportation. So you are to be commended for that. And thank you for seeing into the future what our needs are and taking advantage of the financial situations that will be coming forward so that we can plan for this accordingly. So thank you to Ms. Lords for your work.
Thank you. This is exciting. Thank you. Okay, any other questions, comments?
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
There.
I do have one comment as a follow-up to my very bold statement. We're going to get the money. We're going to get the money.
Okay,
The first step is we have to make the ask,
right.
and now rather than later, so that we are in line at the first of the line and not on the tail end. Thank you.
Right, sounds to me like they're prepared to do that. They are. Okay. Commissioner Driscoll.
Thank you. Just to clarify, so the numbers that we're talking about here is for all electric or a combination of electric and hybrid?
No, that's for 100% zero-emission buses, so we need $75.5 million roughly for the buses and the charging stations,
And we're short 30.
and we're short 30.
Piece of cake, she says. Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. You know? Right. Okay, anything else? We're thinking positive here. All right, thank you
Right.
so much. Thank you.
Right, and if each one of you, as you're talking to legislators, just keep saying it over and over and over again. I've learned that through lobbying through the years. They eventually get tired of hearing it and will give you money.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
We do have our legislative committee, I just looked at the calendar, next a week from Friday, on October 8th, so maybe Congress will vote by then, hopefully. If they do vote on the bipartisan infrastructure package they're looking to, at least what we've seen so far, it does look like PSDA will probably get in order of maybe about $30 million more, so we would be able to get there, so hopefully that will make some progress.
cool.
Yeah.
Janet was right.
All right. Janet's always right. Okay. Finally, Brad, I understand you and Chief Operating Officer James
Yes,
Bradford have a special presentation?
Thank you, Chair Gerard. As you all saw, we opened the meeting with a really nice presentation of the missing man table with a empty chair. And we're gonna soon have another empty chair from missing the retirement of our 35-year transportation director, Jeff Thompson, who has been an amazing member of my leadership team and an awesome leader for thousands of PSA employees over the years. James is going to talk a little bit about Jeff, and then we're going to take a photo.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening to the PSA board members. James Bradford, Chief Operating Officer. So, bittersweet for us, and you can go ahead and go to that next slide, because we say goodbye to someone who's been here for so long and has done so much for the authority. And I say bittersweet because even though we say goodbye and we're going to bid a fond farewell, we're also going to say hello to another gentleman in the back who I will introduce to you just a little bit later. So Jeff, come on up and stand next to me. Please, and if you want the board to see your handsome face, go ahead. I trust you. I got my vaccination buttons on, and he's good. So you may recognize this gentleman here, because usually it's him who's up here to pay tribute to someone that we're going to say goodbye to, whether it's a 20, 25, 30, 35-year veteran employee, or whether it's a good deed, or, we've had an employee, have an act of good citizenship or has been heroic in their efforts. This is the gentleman over decades who has come up before you all, the board, the smooth voice that you've heard to really give you a little bit of background about the PSCA employees and what they've done well. So I get to do that tonight for him, and is my absolute my absolute pleasure. I want to, if you'll allow me, and the gentleman back here said it best, I don't want to stand in the way between you and dinner or late dinner or second supper any longer than we have to, so I will breeze through this. But this brief recap of this man's career that I'm about to do is not nearly going to do him justice, of course. I'm sure we'll all agree on that. So, Jeff grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago. He was born in Harvey, Illinois, and would eventually move from the Chicago area with his wife, Janet, in the early 1980s down here to Florida. He was hired to be a part-time bus operator on October 20th, 1986 for SPMTS. That was the St. Petersburg Municipal Transit System before the merger. He remembers working 20 hours a week, starting out at $6.72 an hour, just only working 20 hours a week at that amount. And even then, that wasn't too sustainable a living, especially with a growing family at four at the time. We're going to have 2 more kids. And so he quickly aspired to move up the PSTA ladder. So during those days at PSTA, you had to start out as a part-time driver and work for almost a year or better before you got your shot to go full-time. And from operator, he would go on to apply for and get additional positions here. He just wanted to know more, learn more, grow. So he achieved the position of DART administrator, where he would oversee and run door-to-door paratransit service, staying ambitious always looking to do more, learn the business, move into different roles within the authority. He was promoted to the position of transportation supervisor in the early 1990s. He eventually moved over to the Clearwater division from St. Pete in order to broaden his horizons and learn a little bit more about the PSA operations in North County. Jeff learned that these supervisory positions, he learned them inside and out. Eventually he would become lead supervisor, the head supervisor. And this was a promotion that actually took him back away from the Clearwater division, back to the St. Pete division. Now, when Sue Lanham, a name you may be familiar with, got the nod at the time, she was the St. Pete division manager, but she actually got the call to step into the role of director of scheduling and routing for PSTA, so she moved out to the Clearwater division, which kind of served as the headquarters at the time. This gentleman right here stepped in, and he took over as the new division manager for the St. Pete division in the late 1990s. Now, in the early 2000s, then executive director Roger Sweeney worked to get both St. Pete and Clearwater divisions under one roof. And he would direct this man right here to give building tours to prospective buyers and business people. For about a year or so, he was leaving his office giving tours of the St. Pete building on 28th Street, formerly housing the St. Pete division, until it was finally sold. And Jeff was integral to the final merger of the 2 PSTA garages in 2005, where North County's Clearwater operations would meet South County's St. Pete operations, and a cast of PSA characters would assemble all under one roof of the building where we now stand here on 3201 Scherer Drive North. So after the merger, Jeff would serve in the role of manager for safety and training department. There was 2 division managers both, and so he held over that department, but eventually would take over running the entire transportation operation, where he has served at the helm of the transportation department for nearly 20 of his 35 years here at PSTA. I know, 34 years, 11 months, 9 days, if we're being exact, but let's just give it to you. Let's call it 35, Jeff. Why not? Jeff loves his job. He's also very loyal to sports teams. Even though he's from the Chicago area, he roots for the Tampa Lightning, the Tampa Rays, the Tampa Bucks, still holds allegiances and loyalties with the Chicago fans, rooting for the White Sox and Chicago Bears. He loves to play golf. He's got his green on. He's going to hit the greens shortly, and he'll get out there whenever he has an opportunity. Other little-known fact about Jeff, he was once part of the Tampa Bay Bucks NFL game day crew, volunteering to work on the sidelines for Sunday home games as sideline security, even jarring it up with famous head coaches like Mike Tomlin and other visiting teams as they would come. Jeff will be remembered by all of us as a man who was always calm, cool, and collected. He served as my counsel, advisor, de-stressor, thought detangler many, many times, and I'll never forget him for that. We'll always be grateful. And let me just say this, the leadership this man exhibited during the pandemic and COVID, really getting us through tough times, the institutional knowledge that he has, just kind of a walking PSTA encyclopedia. Heck, you heard him, reeling off routes tonight just from the top of his head. We're going to miss him. The energy that he brings, the calmness with labor relations, with all the employees, the mentorship over our supervisors, just being advisor to us in our executive meetings. I can't say enough, and like I said, I'm not going to do justice for 35 years here, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of snapshot for who this man is. And so, Jeff will complete his 35 years at PSTA tomorrow, Thursday, September 30th. We wish him a fond farewell, and without further ado, I would like to just turn it over to him to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Bradford. Every time he gives the dissertation of my life, it sounds better. So I'm telling you, I've had a great career here. I want to thank PSTA for the great career. And I want to thank PSTA because I've had the opportunity to work at one of the finest transit properties in the United States. I want to thank the bus operators. I want to thank the supervisors, the customer service reps, our maintenance employees and personnel, our administrative management and staff for working together so that we were able to provide our service to our customers. And thank you for the support of that service. I want to thank you as the Board of Directors for your direction and for your driving the bus for us for the betterment of PSTA. It's really appreciated. Finally, thanks to our customers for riding PSTA, and please, customers, keep riding. It's been my pleasure to work with all the PSTA employees, past and present, so thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.
So I would like to invite Madam Chair and CEO Brad Miller up to take a photo and to present the plaque and clock officially to Mr. Thompson. Jeff, we'll get you packed back up in the safe containers after this. Thank you all very much. And really briefly, I'd like to bring up Mr. Hector Fuentes, who actually officially started today as our new Director of Transportation, and will take over for Mr. Thompson. So he's trying to glean as much as he can over the next couple of days. But Hector, if you want to say a few words, remember you're standing between Second Supper and
I know,
everything.
real brief. Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. What a tough act to follow. I kind of want to leave now. It's kind of.
It's okay.
Well, I just want to let you guys know I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to getting to know more about PSTA and the service out here. I just got here day before yesterday from California, so I'm still mapping everything out and how to get to places. But I'm real excited. I have family that live in Florida and Orlando and the Tampa area. And it's really a dream come true for me to be able to live and work in Florida. So I'm excited about it. Excited about the opportunity. Tough act to follow. Jeff, thank you so much for everything you've done here. And I hope you keep your phone handy. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Welcome.
Madam Chair, Chief Miller, and PSA Board, thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. You all have an excellent night.
Thank you, James. Thank you.
wanted to, I don't know if Jeff remembers, but when I served on St. Petersburg City Council, I came through the building and you toured myself and Randy Wedding and some others because we wanted to turn that location into something that was gonna be affordable housing, but we were having some issues with the ravine that runs through there. I ended up serving on the PSTA board and so had a chance to work with you when we moved over to the new location, which now houses the homeless, and served there for 6 years. So I do remember you, and you were very gracious when you were touring us through the building, when you were on 28th Street. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that I bear witness to the type of work and the congeniality that you showed us at that time. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Brad?
Yeah, well, I just have just a couple other things. So at your places, you have in a little envelope a yellow vaccination pin, just like what I'm wearing. This is what we're giving out to all of the PSTA employees who have been vaccinated. And we know already that at least half of the employees have already gotten their shots. This is the latest effort that we're doing, whatever we can to make sure our workforce stays healthy so they can keep providing great bus service to our community. We're also providing cash bonuses as well for those who get vaccinated. This week, we're doing a little bit better than we have been doing with the number of people that are out with COVID, but we still have a number of bus operators not driving because they have COVID, and so we're going to keep doing whatever we can until we can get all of our employees vaccinated. Speaking of that, I would like to invite all of the board members or anyone that you know, because it'll be open to the public, but we are very happy to partner with the Florida Department of Health for another vaccination clinic here at PSTA, put on Monday, October 11th, 1 to 5 p.m. right here at PSTA. They're going to be giving out Pfizer and J&J vaccines and even boosters as well. Here, 1 to 5 p.m. a week from this coming Monday. And I also just want to thank some of the possibly some of the board member efforts, your efforts here. I'm happy to say that Pinellas County Schools reached out to us, and we finally restarted that needed conversation about PSTA partnering with Pinellas County Schools to provide student transportation. They're, as you probably have known, they're challenged to find bus drivers and provide this transportation, and so I'm very optimistic that we might get something accomplished. They said that maybe they would even bring our proposal that we've had to their school board maybe later this month. So thank you for whatever you've done to help with that. I know you made some comments last month about that, and it came to fruition. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, do we have any other business to discuss? Does any board member have any comments about anything? Oh, yes, ma'am.
I'm just
Mr.
mistalking
Flowers.
today. I just want to share something, and I want to preface it by saying I don't want anyone to get upset. These are simply my comments and my observations. But one of the things I do know when we have an executive director, each one of us as board members, I don't want to say we're Brad's bosses because I don't like that word, but, you know, we evaluate Brad. And Brad tries very hard to make sure that anything that we ask, that he gets it done and that he runs it through the proper process if needed. If he can do it, he does. If he can't, he explains very well why. And he's helped many of us in a number of situations. But I was watching something last week where there was a comment about something that Brad had authorized. And then there was a question about whether or not he actually authorized it because it hadn't gone through the committee process. And so it turned out that a board member called Brad, and then a state senator called Brad. And Brad had not made the agreement. And so for me, I felt really bad for Brad because it put him in a tenuous situation because he's got two board members from PSTA that are saying different things, and then a state senator who is someone we need to go to to keep positive relationships with. in order to get funding or whatever it is that we're asking for. And so it was I felt bad for you because you weren't there to defend yourself, and you're getting these phone calls, because I got one. You're getting these phone calls and you answered them truthfully.
Yeah.
And so my only observation is that we just need to be more deliberate when we're extolling a position that either Brad has taken or the board has taken, if it hasn't followed all the processes yet. And I think that will save, I hope it will save Brad having to go through what he went through, you know, getting a phone call saying, no, I didn't say that from one person, then getting another phone call from a senator, and he having to say that as well. Because it just doesn't make us look like we're cohesive as it relates to what we're doing with policy. And in my opinion, like I said, I felt really bad for Brad because I could only imagine how he felt. You know, I'm answering to these board members, and I'm not trying to get either one of them mad at me, and I don't want the senator mad at me either. And I just felt bad for you. So I'm saying that publicly. I'm not mentioning any names other than your name. But just if we could be a little bit more specific about what we're approving, not approving, the processes that it needs to go through, so that it kind of saves Brad some of that pain and angst. And he knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Well said.
Want to know more about that? Okay. If there's, I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, I missed you. Yes. Oh,
So where,
okay, I just turned you off.
I just found out the other day that they're starting an Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Their first meeting is going to be October 7th. I'm not sure where it is yet. In fact, I'm going to be joining. I met with some of the people the other day at another chamber meeting. So I'll, once I get more information, I'll come back at the next meeting and let you all know what's going on, because I figure that's another ridership situation that we could add to. So just want to let you know.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Good.
Anything else? Not, we are adjourned. Thank you.
All
Thank you.
right. Anybody
Our
wanna
next
go
meeting
eat
is
Indian
October
food or Colombian
27th,
food? Let me know.
9 a.m.
Got a choice. Indian or Colombian? I'm going for Indian, I guess, if no one's joining me. Great Colombian restaurant, though.
You're doing good.
No, 54th Avenue North. Right just before you get, you know where the old Harley Davidson dealership was? It's that little strip center right in front of you. And they've got ABC Seafood, which is a great Chinese restaurant. It opened